The unexpected arrival. The Galactic Academy of Sciences hung suspended in space, a gleaming beacon of knowledge that outshone even the brightest stars surrounding it. Its spiraling towers and crystalline domes housed the greatest minds from across the known universe, a bastion of learning where the boundaries of science were pushed ever further. For millennia, it had stood as the pinnacle of achievement for countless species, a neutral ground where rivalries were set aside in the pursuit of understanding. Today, however, an unprecedented wave of excitement and trepidation rippled through its hallowed halls. The cause? The imminent arrival of its first human student. In the central atrium, a gathering of alien dignitaries, professors, and curious students milled about, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of diversity. There were the towering Zilthurians with their iridescent scales, the gaseous Nebulon professors contained within their environment suits, and even a contingent of the reclusive Quan, their tentacles twitching with barely contained anticipation. Chancellor Vrax, a venerable Arcturian, whose age was measured in centuries, stood at the forefront. His crystalline body sparkled under the atrium's lights as he addressed the assembly. Esteemed colleagues and students, his voice resonated. Today marks a historic moment for our institution. We welcome the first representative from a species that has, until recently, been merely a subject of study rather than active participants in galactic academia. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Humans were a curiosity, a primitive species that had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Their inclusion in the academy was controversial, to say the least. Professor Zilks, a Rigelian known for his conservative views, couldn't contain his skepticism. Chancellor, with all due respect, are we certain this is wise? Humans are barely out of their stellar cradle. Their presence here could potentially set back our research by decades. Before Chancellor Vrax could respond, a sharp chime echoed through the atrium, signaling an incoming craft. The assembled beings turned as one towards the docking bay, where a small, sleek ship was making its final approach. The ship, dwarfed by the grandiose structures of the academy, settled onto the landing pad with a soft hiss. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a pneumatic whoosh, the airlock cycled open. Zara Chen stepped out, her eyes wide with wonder as she took in the alien vista before her. At 18 Earth years old, she stood just over 5.5 feet tall, her black hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore the standard-issue Academy uniform, which seemed to shimmer and adjust to her human physiology. Chancellor Vrax glided forward. "Welcome, Zara Chen of Earth, to the Galactic Academy of Sciences. We are honored by your presence." Zara took a deep breath, steeling herself. This was the moment she had dreamed of since that fateful day when humanity made first contact. "The honor is mine, Chancellor," she replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I hope to learn much and, perhaps, offer a fresh perspective in return." As Zara spoke, the assembled aliens reacted in various ways. Some leaned in, intrigued by her words and demeanor. Others drew back, still wary of this newcomer from a barely known world. Professor Zilks's face contorted into what passed for a frown among his species. "Come," Chancellor Vrax said, extending a crystalline appendage in a gesture of welcome. "Let us show you to your quarters and begin your orientation." As Zara followed the Chancellor, she couldn't help but feel the weight of countless alien gazes upon her. She was not just a student here, she was an ambassador for her entire species. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. The next few days passed in a blur of introductions, orientations, and information overload. Zara's quarters, a modular space that adapted to her human needs, became her sanctuary. Here, she could retreat from the constant scrutiny and allow herself moments of doubt and homesickness. It was during one of these moments of reflection that Zara received her first visitor. A soft chime at her door roused her from her thoughts. "Enter," she called out, straightening her posture. The door slid open to reveal a Medusan student, their serpentine hair riding gently around a face that seemed to shift and change with each passing second. "Greetings, Zara Chen of Earth," The Medusans said, their voice a melodious hiss. I am Silith. I hope I am not intruding. Zara smiled, grateful for the company. Not at all, Silith. Please, come in. Silith slithered into the room, their eyes roaming curiously over the few Earth artifacts Zora had brought with her. I must confess, Silith began, I am fascinated by your presence here. Humans are an enigma to many of us. I imagine we are, Zara replied with a small laugh. Just as all of this is an enigma to me. I spent years studying xenobiology and advanced physics to prepare for this opportunity, but nothing could truly prepare me for, well, this. She gestured broadly, encompassing not just her room, but the entirety of her current situation. Silith's face rippled in what Zara interpreted as understanding. It is much to process, yes, but perhaps that is why you are here. Fresh perspectives can lead to new discoveries. As they conversed, Zara felt some of her anxiety begin to ebb. Here was a being from across the galaxy, yet they could connect on the simple level of two students embarking on a journey of discovery. Their conversation was interrupted by another chime, this one echoing throughout the academy. Ah, Silith said, their hair tendrils curling in excitement. That is the call for the opening lecture. It is customary for new students to present their research proposals. Will you be participating? Zara nodded, a mixture of determination and nervousness settling in her stomach. Yes, I prepared a proposal. It's on the potential applications of human neural plasticity to advanced AI systems. Silith's eyes widened. A gesture Zara was learning indicated surprise among many species. Fascinating. We must hurry then. You do not want to be late for your first academic presentation. As they made their way to the grand lecture hall, Zora couldn't help but feel a sense of destiny. She was about to present ideas that no other being in this hall had considered before. It was her chance to show that humanity, despite its relative youth in galactic affairs, had something valuable to offer. The lecture hall was a vast amphitheater, its tiered seating filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. As Zara took her place at the podium, adjusting it to her height, she saw Chancellor Vrax and the other faculty members watching intently. Professor Zilks, she noted, wore an expression that seemed to radiate skepticism. Taking a deep breath, Zara began her presentation. Esteemed faculty and fellow students, I stand before you not just as a representative of humanity, but as a scholar eager to contribute to our collective knowledge. Today, I propose a study into the unique neural plasticity of the human brain and its potential applications in advancing artificial intelligence systems. As she delved into the details of her proposal, Zara noticed a shift in the audience. The initial skepticism began to give way to genuine interest. Even Professor Zilks leaned forward, his earlier frown softening into a look of contemplation. Zara concluded her presentation, her heart pounding. By combining the adaptability of human neural networks with the processing power of advanced AI, we may unlock new frontiers in machine learning and cognitive computing. Thank you. For a moment, silence reigned in the hall. Then, gradually, a wave of appreciative clicks, hums, and other alien vocalizations filled the air. Chancellor Vrax rose, his crystalline form catching the light. An intriguing proposal, Student Chen. Your unique perspective may indeed offer new avenues of research. We look forward to seeing the results of your work. As Zara stepped down from the podium, she felt a surge of accomplishment. It was just the beginning, she knew, but it was a strong start. She had taken her first real step towards proving that humanity belonged among the stars. The day's events had left Zara exhausted but exhilarated. As she retired to her quarters that night, she gazed out at the star-filled expanse visible from her window. Somewhere out there was Earth, the tiny blue marble that had shaped her and her species. And here she was, at the forefront of galactic science, ready to shape the future. With a smile, Zara turned to her desk, fired up her data pad, and began to refine her research plan. The journey ahead would be challenging, but she was ready. Humanity had arrived at the Galactic Academy of Sciences, and nothing would ever be quite the same again. Challenges and discoveries. The weeks following Zora's arrival at the Galactic Academy of Sciences were a whirlwind of new experiences, challenges, and revelations. As she settled into her classes, the young human found herself constantly pushing the boundaries of her knowledge and adapting to alien ways of thinking. In advanced quantum mechanics, taught by the gaseous Professor Nebulon, Zora struggled initially with the multi-dimensional calculations that came naturally to her non-human classmates. However, her human intuition and ability to visualize complex problems in unique ways soon caught the attention of both her peers and her instructor. Fascinating approach. Student Chen. Professor Nebulon's translated voice buzzed through the classroom's audio system. Your method of mapping quantum entanglement using Earth's musical notation system is unorthodox, but remarkably effective. Zora beamed with pride, but she couldn't help noticing the mix of reactions from her classmates. While some, like her new friend Syleth, seemed genuinely impressed, others appeared less enthused. A Vexillian student named Zorax, in particular, regarded her with what she interpreted as disdain. As the class ended, Zorax approached her, his crystalline form towering over her. Impressive trick, human, he said, his tone cold. But parlor games won't get you far in real scientific discourse. Before Zora could respond, Syleth slithered between them. Perhaps it is time to broaden your definition of real science, Zorax, the Medusan hissed. After all, progress often comes from unexpected sources. Zorax scoffed and strode away, leaving Zora with a mix of frustration and determination. Thanks, Syleth, she said, gathering her materials. I guess not everyone is thrilled with my presence here. Syleth's hair tendrils waved in a gesture of dismissal. Pay him no mind. Come, we have xenobiology next, and I hear we're dissecting a particularly rare specimen today. As they made their way through the Academy's winding corridors, Zora couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. It wasn't just the usual curious glances she received as the only human on campus. This felt more targeted. Her suspicions were confirmed when she rounded a corner and nearly collided with Professor Zilks. The Regellian regarded her with his multifaceted eyes, his expression unreadable. Ah, Student Chen, I've been meaning to have a word with you. Zora straightened, trying to project confidence. Of course, Professor. What can I do for you? I've been reviewing your work, Zilks began, his tone neutral. Your approach is unconventional, to say the least. While some of my colleagues seem impressed by your novel ideas, I find myself concerned about the potential disruption to our established methodologies. Zora felt a flicker of anger, but she kept her voice level. With all due respect, Professor, isn't the pursuit of new methodologies part of what science is all about? I'm not here to disrupt, but to contribute and learn. Zilks's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement or irritation. Bold words, young human. We shall see if your actions live up to them. I'll be watching your progress with great interest. With that, he turned and glided away, leaving Zora with a sense of unease. The xenobiology lab was a marvel of alien technology, filled with stasis chambers containing specimens from across the galaxy. As Zora and Syleth took their places at a workstation, Professor Thalasi, a bioluminescent aquarian, floated to the front of the class. Today, Thalasi's melodic voice rippled through the water in her suit. We will be examining a most intriguing specimen. Behold. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a creature that looked like a cross between an earth octopus and a sunflower. Its tentacles ended in what appeared to be photosynthetic appendages, and its central body pulsed with an inner light. This is a Lumina cephalopoda, discovered on the outer rim of the Andromeda galaxy. Thalasi explained. Your task is to analyze its unique biology and hypothesize about its evolutionary path and potential sentience. As the class set to work, Zora found herself drawn into the puzzle of the creature's existence. Its biology was unlike anything she had studied on Earth, Yet there was something hauntingly familiar about its structure. Hours passed as she and Silith worked, comparing notes and bouncing ideas off each other. It was during a particularly heated debate about the creature's method of communication that Zara had her breakthrough. "Wait, look at this," she said, pointing to a particular sequence in the creature's genetic code. "This pattern, it's similar to how bioluminescent creatures on Earth communicate, but it's not just light they're using. See these molecular structures? I think they're capable of quantum entanglement on a biological level." Silith's eyes widened. "Fascinating. But how would such a trait evolve naturally?" "That's just it," Zara said, her excitement growing. "I don't think it did. At least, not entirely. Look at the uniformity of these sequences. I think this species might have been engineered." Their discussion caught the attention of Professor Thalasi, who glided over to their workstation. As Zara explained her theory, the professor's bioluminescence pulsed with increasing intensity. "Student Chen, this is most unexpected," Thalasi said, her voice tinged with both excitement and concern. "If your hypothesis is correct, it could have far-reaching implications for our understanding of life in the galaxy. We must bring this to the attention of the Academy Board immediately." As word of Zara's discovery spread, the atmosphere in the Academy shifted palpably. Students and faculty alike buzzed with speculation about the implications of an engineered species capable of quantum communication. Chancellor Vrax called an emergency meeting of the Academy Board, and Zara found herself standing before the assembled leaders of the galaxy's scientific community, her heart pounding as she presented her findings. "The evidence suggests," she concluded, her voice steady despite her nerves, "that the Lumina cephalopoda may be the result of advanced bioengineering, possibly by a civilization far beyond our current level of technology. The ability to encode quantum entanglement into biological systems could revolutionize everything from communication to computing to space travel." The room erupted into a cacophony of alien voices, each species reacting in their own way to the implications of her discovery. Chancellor Vrax raised his crystalline arms, calling for order. "This is indeed a momentous discovery," he said, his voice cutting through the din. "If verified, it could change the course of galactic science. However, it also raises troubling questions. Who created these beings, and for what purpose? And are they still out there, watching us?" As the debate raged on, Zora couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and trepidation. She had come to the Academy hoping to prove humanity's worth, but she never imagined she would stumble upon a mystery that could shake the foundations of galactic society. In the days that followed, Zara found herself at the center of a storm of attention. Some hailed her as a visionary, while others, like Zorax and his friends, accused her of seeking glory with wild speculations. Professor Zilks, to her surprise, seemed to have softened his stance. "Your discovery, while yet to be fully verified, shows promise," he told her after a particularly grueling round of questioning by the board. "Perhaps there is more to your species than I initially thought." But it was during a late-night study session in the Academy's vast library that Zara made her most chilling discovery. As she pored over ancient star charts, comparing them to the location where the Lumina cephalopoda had been found, she noticed a pattern. Scattered across the galaxy, in seemingly random locations, were stellar phenomena that defied conventional explanation. Pulsars that beat with impossible regularity, nebula that seemed to shift and change far too quickly for natural processes, and gravitational anomalies that shouldn't exist. With growing excitement and fear, Zara began to map these anomalies. As the pattern emerged on her holographic display, her blood ran cold. The anomalies weren't random at all. They formed a vast, galaxy-spanning network with the location of the Lumina cephalopoda at one of its nodes. "Oh my God," she whispered to the empty library. "It's not just one engineered species. It's an entire network. Someone, or something, has been shaping our galaxy for millions of years." As the implications of her discovery sank in, Zara realized that she had stumbled upon something far bigger than she could have ever imagined. The question now was, What should she do with this information? And more importantly, were the creators of this galactic network still out there, watching and waiting? With shaking hands, Zara began to compile her findings. Whatever was going on, she knew that the entire galaxy needed to be prepared. Humanity had just arrived on the galactic stage, but it seemed they might have a crucial role to play in unraveling a mystery as old as the stars themselves. As she worked through the night, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. In the shadows of the vast library, something seemed to shift and move, just out of sight. But when she turned to look, there was nothing there but rows upon rows of ancient books and data crystals, silent witnesses to a revelation that could change everything. The rising crisis. The Galactic Academy of Sciences was in an uproar. News of Zara's discovery had spread like wildfire, igniting debates and controversies across every department. The young human found herself at the center of a storm she had never anticipated when she first set foot on the station. Chancellor Vrax had called an emergency session of the full Academy, a rare event that hadn't occurred in over a century. As Zara made her way to the Grand Assembly Hall, she could feel the weight of countless alien gazes upon her. Some were filled with curiosity and excitement, others with skepticism and even fear. Silith slithered up beside her, the Medusan's serpentine hair writhing with agitation. "Zara, are you certain about this? The implications of your discovery. They're staggering." Zara nodded, her face set with determination. "I've triple-checked everything, Silith. The evidence is clear. There's a pattern to these anomalies that can't be explained by natural phenomena. Someone or something has been shaping our galaxy for millions of years." As they entered the Grand Assembly Hall, Zara's breath caught in her throat. The vast chamber was filled to capacity, with representatives from every species and department in the Academy. At the center, a holographic display showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with the anomalies Zara had discovered highlighted in pulsing red. Chancellor Vrax's crystalline form glimmered as he called the assembly to order. "Esteemed colleagues," his voice resonated through the hall, "we stand at a crossroads of scientific discovery. Student Zora Chen of Earth has brought to our attention a matter of grave importance. I call upon her now to present her findings." With a deep breath, Zora stepped forward. The holographic display zoomed in on the area where the Lumina cephalopoda had been discovered. "As you can see," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "the genetic structure of the Lumina cephalopoda suggests artificial engineering far beyond our current capabilities. But this is just the beginning." She manipulated the display, zooming out to show the entire galaxy. "These red points indicate anomalies I've identified. Pulsars with impossible regularities, rapidly shifting nebulae, and gravitational distortions that defy our understanding of physics. When mapped together, they form a vast network spanning our entire galaxy." A murmur rippled through the assembled aliens as the implications sank in. Zora continued, her voice growing stronger. "The precision and scale of this network suggest a level of technology far beyond anything we've encountered. We're not just looking at one engineered species, we're looking at the possibility of a galaxy-wide system of something. Perhaps a communication network, or a power grid, or something we can't even conceive of yet." Professor Zilks's voice cut through the rising whispers. "This is preposterous. You expect us to believe that some unknown force has been manipulating our entire galaxy without our knowledge, based on the findings of a single human student." Zara stood her ground. "I understand your skepticism, Professor, but the data doesn't lie. I invite any of you to examine my findings. The pattern is there, waiting for us to unravel its meaning." Chancellor Vrax raised his arms for silence. "This is indeed an extraordinary claim, Student Chen. But if true, the implications for our understanding of the universe, and our place in it, are profound. We must approach this with all the rigor and caution our scientific traditions demand." As the debate raged on, with various factions arguing for further study, immediate action, or outright dismissal of Zora's claims, An alarm suddenly blared through the station. The holographic display flickered and changed, showing a massive energy surge emanating from one of the anomalies Zora had identified. "Chancellor," a frantic voice called out. "We're detecting an enormous power spike from the Cygnus arm anomaly. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." The assembly erupted into chaos as the implications sank in. Whatever force had created the galactic network Zora had discovered, it was no longer dormant. It was awakening. In the midst of the pandemonium, Zara felt a strange calm settle over her. This was the moment everything had been leading to. Humanity had arrived late to the galactic stage, but perhaps they had arrived just in time. "Chancellor," she called out, her voice cutting through the din. "We need to form a task force immediately. Whatever this is, we need to understand it, and fast. The fate of our entire galaxy could be at stake." Chancellor Vrax nodded, his crystalline form pulsing with an inner light that betrayed his agitation. "Agreed. Student Chen, given your unique perspective on this matter, I'm appointing you to lead this task force. Choose your team wisely. You'll have the full resources of the Academy at your disposal." As the assembly broke up, with various groups rushing to their departments to begin analyzing the new data, Zara found herself surrounded by a mix of eager volunteers and skeptical onlookers. Silith was the first to step forward. "I'm with you, Zora. Whatever this is, we'll face it together." To Zora's surprise, Zorax, the Vixilian student who had been so dismissive of her before, approached next. "Your methods may be unorthodox, human, but I cannot deny the gravity of this situation. I offer my skills in quantum mechanics to your cause." One by one, representatives from various species and disciplines stepped forward, each bringing unique skills and perspectives to the team. As Zara looked around at her assembled task force, she felt a surge of hope. This diverse group, brought together by a common purpose, represented the best of what the galactic community could be. "All right, team," she said, her voice firm with newfound authority. "We have a mystery to solve, and possibly a galaxy to save. Let's get to work." As the task force dispersed to begin their preparations, Professor Zilks approached Zora. His earlier skepticism seemed to have been replaced by a grudging respect. "I still have my doubts, Student Chen," he said, his mandibles clicking softly. "But I cannot ignore the evidence before us. Be careful. We're venturing into unknown territory, and the consequences of a misstep could be catastrophic." Zara nodded, appreciating the professor's candor. "I understand, sir. We'll proceed with caution, but we can't afford to hesitate. Whatever this force is, it's been influencing our galaxy for millions of years. And now, for some reason, it's waking up." As she turned to leave, Zara caught a glimpse of her reflection in one of the station's polished surfaces. The face that looked back at her was no longer just a curious student, but a leader on the brink of a discovery that could change the course of galactic history. In the days that followed, the Galactic Academy of Sciences transformed into a hive of feverish activity. Zara's task force worked around the clock, analyzing data from across the galaxy and preparing for an expedition to the nearest anomaly site. The energy surges continued, growing in frequency and intensity. With each new pulse, strange phenomena were reported from across the galaxy. Gravity fluctuations, time dilation effects, and in some cases, the appearance of impossible structures that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. As Zora pored over the latest data in her quarters, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Whatever force they were dealing with, it was growing stronger, more active. And they were still no closer to understanding its true nature or purpose. A soft chime at her door roused her from her thoughts. "Enter," she called out, expecting another member of her task force with a report. To her surprise, it was Chancellor Vrax who glided into the room, his crystalline form dimmed with what Zora had learned to recognize as concern. "Student Chen," he said, his voice low. "I've just received a transmission from the Galactic Council. They're concerned about the situation." Zara felt a chill run down her spine. The Galactic Council, The ruling body that oversaw interstellar affairs rarely involved themselves directly in academic matters. For them to take notice meant the situation was even more serious than she had realized. "What do they want?" she asked, already dreading the answer. Chancellor Vrax's form pulsed with agitation. "They're sending a delegation to oversee our investigation. And they're bringing a contingent of the Galactic Defense Force." Zara's eyes widened. "They think this is a military threat." "They're not sure what to think," Vrax replied. "But they're not taking any chances. Zara, I need you to understand the gravity of the situation. If we can't provide answers soon, the Council may decide to take drastic action." As the implications sank in, Zara felt the weight of responsibility settle even more heavily on her shoulders. She had come to the Academy to learn, to prove that humanity had a place among the stars. Now she found herself at the center of a crisis that threatened not just her species, but every living being in the galaxy. "I understand, Chancellor," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her mind. "We'll redouble our efforts. Whatever this force is, we'll find a way to communicate with it, to understand it. There has to be a reason it's revealing itself now, after millions of years." As Chancellor Vrax left, Zara turned back to her data displays, a new determination burning within her. The crisis was escalating, the stakes higher than she could have ever imagined. But she refused to give in to fear or doubt. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and triumphed. Now, it was time to prove that human ingenuity and perseverance could make a difference on a galactic scale. With renewed focus, Zara began to formulate a plan. They needed to move quickly, to get to the nearest anomaly site before the Galactic Council could interfere. And they needed to find a way to communicate with whatever intelligence was behind this vast, ancient network. As she worked through the night, piecing together disparate bits of data and formulating hypotheses, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the brink of uncovering something that would change the course of galactic history forever. The question was, would they be ready for what they found? Outside her window, the stars seemed to pulse with an eerie light, as if the very fabric of space-time was responding to the awakening of an ancient force. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would emerge from the shadows of its own forgotten past. And at the center of it all, a young human woman worked tirelessly, driven by a mixture of scientific curiosity and the weight of responsibility that had been thrust upon her. The fate of the galaxy now rested, at least in part, on the shoulders of a species that had only just taken its first steps into the cosmic ocean. As the first light of the station's artificial dawn began to seep into her quarters, Zara finally allowed herself a moment of rest. Tomorrow, she would present her plan to the task force. And then, they would embark on the most important mission in the history of galactic civilization. The human era of galactic science was about to begin in earnest, and Zara Chen was determined to prove that humanity was ready for the challenge. Humanity's ingenuity unleashed. The sleek research vessel, Cosmic Voyager, hummed with energy as it approached the nearest anomaly in the Cygnus Arm. Zara stood on the bridge, surrounded by her diverse team of alien scientists and researchers. The view screen showed a swirling mass of energy, pulsing with colors that seemed to defy the visible spectrum. "All systems are operational," Zorax reported from his station, his crystalline form reflecting the eerie light from the anomaly. "But I'm detecting some unusual quantum fluctuations. Our shields may not hold for long in this environment." Zara nodded, her face set with determination. "Understood. Silith, any luck deciphering the energy patterns?" The Medusan's tendrils writhed as they manipulated the holographic controls. "Not yet. The signals are unlike anything in our databases. It's as if they're operating on principles of physics we haven't even discovered yet." As the ship drew closer to the anomaly, the entire vessel began to shudder. Alarms blared as the quantum fluctuations intensified. "We're losing stability," Zorax shouted over the din. "Our quantum field generators can't compensate fast enough." In that moment of crisis, Zora's mind raced. She thought back to her studies on Earth, to concepts that seemed primitive compared to the advanced science of the galaxy, but which now might hold the key to their survival. "Wait," she called out. "What if we're approaching this all wrong? We're trying to shield ourselves from the quantum fluctuations, but what if we embrace them instead?" Her alien colleagues looked at her in confusion. Zara rushed to explain, her words tumbling out in a rush of inspiration. "On Earth, we have a concept called surfing, riding waves in the ocean. What if we modulate our shields to ride these quantum waves instead of fighting against them?" Zorax's crystalline eyes widened in understanding. "Ingenious. We could use the ship's graviton emitters to create a resonance field that matches the fluctuations, but the calculations would be immensely complex. We'd need to adjust in real time." "I can do it," Zara said, surprising even herself with her confidence. "My human brain might not be as fast as your quantum processors, but we're uniquely adapted to recognize patterns and make intuitive leaps." With no time to argue, the team sprang into action. Zara took control of the shield modulation, her fingers flying over the holographic interface as she surfed the quantum waves. The ship's shuddering eased as they fell into sync with the anomaly's pulsations. "It's working," Silith exclaimed, their voice filled with awe. "We're stable, and the readings, they're incredible. We're picking up data that's orders of magnitude more detailed than anything we've seen before." As they penetrated deeper into the anomaly, the universe seemed to shift around them. Space and time became fluid, and Zara felt her consciousness expanding, touching the edges of something vast and ancient. Suddenly, a presence filled the ship, not a physical entity, but a consciousness that seemed to permeate every atom of their being. When it spoke, it was not with words, but with concepts that unfolded in their minds like blooming flowers. "Observers, seekers, you have found us at last." Zara stepped forward, her voice steady despite the awe she felt. "We come in peace, seeking understanding." "Who? What are you?" The presence seemed to pause, as if considering how to respond in terms they could comprehend. "We are the architects, shapers of galaxies, guardians of evolution. We have waited eons for a species to reach the level of understanding necessary to perceive us." Images flooded Zora's mind. Vast machines that spanned light years, shaping the very fabric of space-time. She saw the birth and death of stars, the slow dance of galaxies, all guided by the invisible hand of the architects. "The network we discovered," Zara said, understanding dawning. "It's a tool for you to shape the galaxy." A crude analogy, but not incorrect. We nurture the conditions for life and intelligence to flourish. But now, a threat approaches, one that even we cannot face alone. The ship's crew exchanged glances of alarm. Zora pressed on. "What threat? How can we help?" The architect's response came not in words, but in a series of vivid impressions. Zara saw a darkness spreading between the galaxies, a void that consumed everything in its path. It was entropy given form, the heat death of the universe accelerated and made hungry. The devourers come. They seek to end all complexity, to reduce the universe to uniform simplicity. We have held them at bay for billions of years, but our strength wanes. We need the spark of young races, the creativity and adaptability that we have lost in our long vigil. Zara's mind reeled at the implications, the fate of not just their galaxy, but potentially the entire universe, hung in the balance. And somehow, improbably, humanity's unique perspective might be the key to facing this threat. But why now? Zara asked. Why reveal yourselves to us at this moment? The architect's response was tinged with what Zara could only interpret as urgency. The devourers approach faster than anticipated. We activated the network to prepare the galaxy for what is to come. But in doing so, we have also alerted them to your presence. Time grows short. As the gravity of the situation sank in, Zara felt a surge of determination. This was why humanity had reached for the stars, why she had come to the Galactic Academy. Not just to learn, but to contribute. to be part of something greater than themselves. "We'll help," she said, her voice firm. "But we can't do it alone. We need to unite the galaxy, to pool our knowledge and resources." The architect's presence seemed to pulse with approval. "Yes, unity in diversity. This is the strength we have fostered. But beware, young one. Knowledge of our existence will change your civilization forever. Are you prepared for that responsibility?" Zara looked around at her alien colleagues, seeing the same mix of fear and determination in their eyes that she felt. "We don't have a choice," she said. "If we don't act, everything we know and love will be lost. We have to try." As the architects began to withdraw, leaving behind a wealth of information and technology beyond their wildest dreams, Zara turned to her team. "We need to get back to the Academy immediately. We have a galaxy to unite and a universe to save." The return journey was a blur of frantic preparations and heated debates. By the time they docked at the Galactic Academy, news of their discovery had already spread. The station was in an uproar, with representatives from every major galactic power demanding answers. As Zara stepped off the ship, she was met by Chancellor Vrax and a delegation from the Galactic Council. The weight of history pressed down on her as she prepared to deliver news that would change the course of galactic civilization forever. "Chancellor, esteemed representatives," she began, her voice carrying across the suddenly hushed docking bay. "We have made contact with an ancient intelligence known as the Architects. They have watched over our galaxy for billions of years, guiding the evolution of life and intelligence. But now, they need our help." As she explained the threat of the Devourers and the role that the diverse species of the galaxy would need to play in the coming conflict, Zara could see the shock, disbelief, and dawning understanding on the faces of those around her. "We stand at a crossroads," she concluded, her voice ringing with conviction. "We can turn away from this knowledge, cling to our old rivalries and limitations, or we can rise to the challenge, unite as never before, and take our place as guardians of life in the universe." For a moment, silence reigned. Then, slowly at first, but with growing enthusiasm, voices of support began to rise from the assembled crowd. Species that had been bitter enemies for centuries found themselves standing side by side, united by a common purpose. As the reality of their situation sank in and plans began to form, Zara felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find Professor Zilks, his mandibles clicking softly. "It seems I underestimated you, Student Chen," he said, his voice humble. "And perhaps I underestimated humanity as well. Your species' ability to think outside established paradigms, to make intuitive leaps, it may well be the spark we need to face this threat." Zara smiled, feeling a sense of acceptance and belonging she had never experienced before. "Thank you, Professor. But it's not just humanity. It's all of us working together that will make the difference." As she looked out at the diverse array of beings now united in purpose, Zara felt a swell of hope. The challenge ahead was immense, perhaps even impossible. But standing here, at the dawn of a new era of galactic cooperation, she knew that they had a fighting chance. The human era of galactic history had begun, not with conquest or domination, but with a call to unity and a readiness to face the unknown. Whatever the future held, Zara knew that humanity had found its place among the stars. A new era of cooperation. The months following the revelation of the Architects and the looming threat of the Devourers were a whirlwind of activity across the galaxy. The Galactic Academy of Sciences, once a bastion of pure research, had transformed into the nerve center of an unprecedented cooperative effort. Zara found herself at the heart of it all, her days filled with strategy meetings, technological briefings, and diplomatic negotiations. The young human who had arrived as a curious student was now a key figure in the galaxy's preparations for the coming storm. On this particular day, Zara stood before a holographic display of the Milky Way, surrounded by representatives from dozens of species. The map was dotted with glowing points representing the activation of ancient architect technology across the galaxy. The integration of architect tech with our existing defense systems, is proceeding faster than expected," Zara reported, her voice carrying the weight of authority she had grown into. "Thanks to the Zilthurians' breakthroughs in quantum entanglement, we're able to coordinate our efforts across vast distances in real time." Chancellor Vrax's crystalline form pulsed with approval. "Excellent work, Zara. And what of the Lumina cephalopoda? Have we made progress in understanding their role?" Zara nodded, gesturing to Silith, who slithered forward. The Medusan's tendrils danced as they manipulated the holographic controls, zooming in on a sector near the galactic core. "We've discovered that the Lumina cephalopoda are actually biological quantum computers," Silith explained, their voice filled with excitement. "They form a living network, capable of processing vast amounts of data and predicting possible futures. With their help, we're able to model the Devourer's potential strategies and develop countermeasures." The assembled representatives murmured in appreciation. Zorax, who had become one of Zara's closest allies, stepped forward. "But we're not just playing defense," he added, his crystalline eyes gleaming. "Thanks to human-inspired innovations in our propulsion systems, we've managed to extend our reach beyond the galaxy's edge. We're setting up an early warning network that should give us precious extra time when the Devourers finally arrive." As the meeting continued, detailing advancements in weapons technology, shield systems, and evacuation protocols, Zara felt a profound sense of pride, not just in humanity's contributions, but in the way the galaxy had come together. Old rivalries had been set aside, resources pooled, and knowledge freely shared. It was everything she had hoped for when she first set foot on the Academy station, and more. After the meeting adjourned, Zara found a quiet moment to herself, gazing out at the stars from an observation deck. The view was different now, knowing what she knew about the architects and the looming threat, but it was no less beautiful. "Quite a view, isn't it?" a familiar voice said behind her. Zara turned to see Professor Zilks approaching, his movements more relaxed than she had ever seen them. "Professor," she greeted him with a smile. "I didn't expect to see you here. I thought you'd be busy with the new quantum shielding tests." Zilks's mandibles clicked in what Zara had learned was a sign of amusement. Even an old Regelian needs a moment of contemplation now and then, especially given how much our understanding of the universe has changed. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the slow dance of stars and ships beyond the station. "You know," Zilk said at last, "when you first arrived here, I thought your presence was a mistake. I couldn't imagine what a species as young as humanity could possibly contribute to galactic science." Zara turned to him, curious. "And now?" The professor's multifaceted eyes seemed to sparkle. "Now I think perhaps it was the rest of us who had grown too set in our ways. Your human perspective, your ability to make intuitive leaps and think outside established paradigms. It was exactly what we needed to face this crisis." Zara felt a warmth spread through her chest at the words. "Thank you, Professor. But it's not just humanity. Every species has brought something unique and valuable to this effort. We're stronger together than we ever could have been apart." Zilks nodded, his antenna twitching in agreement. "Indeed, and that may be the greatest discovery to come out of all this. Not the architect's technology or the threat of the Devourers, but the realization that our diversity is our greatest strength." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden commotion. Alarms began to blare throughout the station, and the observation deck's displays lit up with urgent messages. "Attention all personnel," the station's AI announced, its voice calm but insistent. "Multiple anomalies detected at the galaxy's edge. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Zara and Zilks exchanged a look of grim determination. The moment they had been preparing for had finally arrived. The Devourers were here. What followed was a blur of activity as the galaxy's united forces sprang into action. Fleets of ships, enhanced with architect technology, and crewed by mixed species teams, moved into defensive positions. The early warning network Zorax had helped establish gave them precious hours to prepare, time bought with the lives of brave volunteers who had manned the outermost posts. From the Academy's command center, Zura coordinated the response, drawing on the unique strengths of each species. Xylthurian ships, nearly invisible thanks to their advanced cloaking technology, darted in and out of the enemy formations, gathering crucial intelligence. Vixillian crystal ships formed living shields, their structures adapting in real time to the Devourer's attacks. And at the forefront, a fleet of human-designed ships, their unconventional tactics keeping the enemy off balance. They fought not with brute force, but with unpredictability and adaptability, qualities that the Devourers, for all their power, seemed to lack. The battle raged for days, then weeks. Entire star systems were lost, their light snuffed out by the insatiable hunger of the Devourers. But slowly, gradually, the tide began to turn. It was Silith who first noticed the pattern. "Look," they called out, their tendrils weaving complex patterns in the air. "The Devourers, they're not adapting to our strategies. They're powerful, yes, but they lack creativity." Zara's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Of course, they're the embodiment of entropy, of reduction to simplicity. They can't innovate, can't think outside their programming. With this realization, the united forces pressed their advantage. Drawing on the vast predictive power of the Lumina cephalopoda network, they launched a series of coordinated attacks that the Devourers couldn't anticipate or counter. In the aftermath of the battle, as the galaxy began the long process of healing and rebuilding, Zara found herself once again standing before the Academy's assembly. But this time, it wasn't just scientists and academics in attendance. Leaders from across the galaxy had gathered to chart the course for a new era. "We have faced our greatest challenge and emerged victorious," Zara began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall. "But our work is not done. The architects have entrusted us with a great responsibility, to be the caretakers of life and complexity in our galaxy, and perhaps one day beyond." She paused, looking out at the sea of diverse faces before her. "We've learned that our greatest strength lies not in uniformity, but in our differences. Each of us brings a unique perspective, a unique set of skills and ideas. Together, we are far greater than the sum of our parts." Chancellor Vrack stepped forward, his crystalline form shimmering with an inner light. "To that end, we propose a transformation of the Galactic Academy of Sciences. No longer will it be merely an institution of learning, but the foundation of a new galactic society. One built on cooperation, on the free exchange of ideas, on mutual respect and understanding." The proposal was met with thunderous approval. In the days and weeks that followed, a new galactic charter was drafted. The old power structures were dismantled, replaced by a cooperative system that valued input from all species, no matter how ancient or how newly spacefaring. And at the heart of it all was the principle that had saved them: unity in diversity. The galaxy would face future challenges not as separate species, but as a united front, each race contributing its unique strengths to the whole. As for Zara, she found herself in a role she had never anticipated when she first left Earth. As the liaison between humanity and the broader galactic community, she worked tirelessly to ensure that her species took its place as equal partners in this new era. Years later, as she watched a new group of human students arrive at the Academy, no longer a novelty, but a welcome addition to the vibrant tapestry of galactic society, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought them all to this point. The arrival of a single human girl had set in motion a chain of events that reshaped the galaxy, not through force or conquest, but through curiosity, adaptability, and the willingness to reach out across the vast gulfs of space and biology to find common ground. As she turned her gaze to the stars, Zara felt a sense of boundless possibility. The galaxy had faced its greatest threat and emerged stronger, more united. And now, with the wisdom of the architects to guide them, and their own ingenuity to drive them forward, who knew what wonders they might achieve. The human era of galactic history had begun not with a bang, but with a question, a hand extended in friendship, and a willingness to see the universe through new eyes. And in doing so, they had helped forge a future brighter than any single species could have imagined alone.